Yes, this is a grant available through, I guess, Department of Housing. Back in June 15th, the council had a special meeting to authorize us to apply for this grant. We did apply for it and we did receive it. We received the maximum amount of the grant, $15,000. Now we just have to get from the council approval to accept the grant and sign the necessary paperwork to get the $15,000.
I think that's pretty good news. So entertain a motion to accept for the resolution.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve or to authorize John Mayer to approve the executed note of grant award, Affordable Housing Plan Grant Technical Assistance Program Round 2 in the amount of $15,000.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I mean, just a real quick procedural question. John, is this going to be on a consent agenda at town council or?
Consent.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty informative, the write-up, so.
Yep. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
good.
All good. All those in favor?
Sorry, just I had a question just about, since it's going to be on the consent agenda, just how the mechanism it's going to work. So the grant is 15,000 and the town's going to contribute 20. So the total cost is 35, or is the 15 going to offset some of the 20 that the town is spending?
Total of 35.
Okay.
We have a total of $35,000 to do this study, and the 15,000 will go first.
And it looks like it's completed by, or we're targeting completing by July 22. Any concerns about when we need to get started there, anything like that?
No, not at the moment. We should be going out, getting a consultant to help us put this together.
Sounds good.
And we had to do this plan anyway, right?
Yeah, it's required by the state.
Right. So this, at least we're getting a little help with it, right? Okay.
Any additional questions? No? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Item number 3, an update on the defined benefit pension annual review as of June 30th.
Okay. Yes, what I inserted into the packet was just a one page. Wanted to share just some highlights. We don't usually cover much on the defined benefit pension plans, but in the previous year, we didn't have a lot of growth on the assets, and we were concerned, obviously, with the market and so forth. So we wanted to share what the growth was for the 2021 fiscal year and show that to you. So we did a little spreadsheet to show you each of the 4 plans. We have the 4 defined benefit plans, the general employees, obviously police, ambulance, and the volunteer fire. So you can see basically overall, we try to keep them consistent in the investment process, that they all ran around the 28 to 29% growth in the assets. So we were quite pleased with that. As we started the year, it was a little bit slow and picked up in the second quarter and kind of tapered toward the end of the year. So we're going to watch this on a quarterly basis and see how we go forward. We felt it would be a good idea to share it at this point.
Any
Good
comments?
question.
Mhm.
Well, do you have that broken down by, or roughly how much of that is from contributions by the town? How much is that is earnings on the investments themselves?
Well, we do, as you see in your regular budget, that we had the employer portion. I think we had budgeted for general and police contribution was about 400,000. So obviously it's the assets that are presently in the plan that are making the growth. It's the employee contributions, not so much the additional employer. So this is the activity of the existing assets that are in the plan that are making the growth. I mean, obviously we have our obligation to meet our actuarial contribution, but this is really what the assets themselves and their activity. I'm sure if that answered that for you.
Yeah. So, well, I guess so this is just the DB plan. So this So, I mean, there's money going in from Town of Rock Hill, there's money going in, I guess, from employees based on their contracts. There's money going out to folks that have retired, and then there's how much is being earned through whatever investment vehicles they're using. So
Correct.
So is a lot of this growth like is like an off what's put in is kind of offset by what's put out for retirees, and so the growth is really based mostly on investment income, or
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, this is the growth from the investment income.
It's kind of net growth. You mentioned we do have pension expenses and so on, but in addition to paying out all this pension obligations, the plans did earn 28% over the year.
Correct. That's after expense.
it's a nice return.
It is. It is.
Do we know what our benchmark usually is? I'm guessing lower than 28%, but as back of the envelope about how well we usually do with these funds.
I think last-
Generally, it follows the equity markets. So when the equity markets do well, we generally do well.
So bulk of this is in public equities with a little bit in some public debt and that sort of thing.
Some bonds, so forth, right?
Yeah, it's spread out among like, I think 16 different asset classes from
Right.
small, large, medium cap, international, even some real estate, even, let's see here, we do have it in fixed and so on. So yeah, it's pretty well diversified, and it seems like all categories did well last year.
And if that trend continues into the next budget cycle, that would potentially help us lower the amount of contribution based upon the actuarial.
Ideally.
So that would be the real positive, I guess, going forward if we continue on this trend.
Correct. So we'll want to watch this.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think in the past we had seen the number of with the percent funded that we are. And I would almost expect with, I guess depends on which account we're talking about, but in some cases, a year like this may potentially put us over 100% funded, or do you know how close we are for all these?
I don't have that with me. Did
Yeah,
you know?
that type of calculation is done every other year, usually on the even years. So the last time we had it done was 2020.
2020.
Next one will be next year, 2022. But as you said, Chris, with these numbers, it can't hurt us. So we should push us over. And again, the general employees, it's pretty much closed. So no additional expenses being added to that plan.
Thanks.
But like for the police, though, we're gonna have some extra contributions because of the change in the plan this year. So that's obviously not reflected because that's of June, but so I have to keep
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Okay.
Everybody comfortable? We could, if so, we'll move forward. Item 4, reserve for capital and non-recurring expenditures.
Okay, there's 2 sheets associated with this section. The first one is the year ending June 21st. Just pointing out some highlights of what how the fund did on some of the expenditures. I put some numbers down, like the number 1, we had to replace our generator at firehouse number 3, and we ended up completing it. But Mona and Phil filed an insurance claim. So we ended up getting $12,000 of insurance money to help cover the cost of the replacement. So we have a little surplus in that line. Number 2 relates to the police body cameras, where I think about a year ago, the council reallocated some money to this account so that we could qualify for a 50% grant of for expenses through OPM. And we did that. We did our first round of cameras at 175, and then OPM did provide us reimbursement of $87,000. So at the end, we were sitting at the beginning of this year with $87,000 left to spend on this body cam project for the police department. Number 3 relates to the beginning of last year's, the Board of Ed was replacing the Stevens School roof. We allocated $800,000 towards it. It actually cost the town a little bit, around $566,000, of which we did get reimbursement from the state. It was supposed to be the first round of $189,000 of that. We haven't seen the final payout yet. Part of the problem at the state is I think they're still all working at home. Plus they had a reorganization at that school building grant administration. So people are in new positions there. But also we took some money out of that $800,000 to help the Board of Ed last year with some of the COVID expenditures that you see in item number 3 down below. So under their so-called roof replacement program, we're still sitting with $192,000 at the start of this year. And then number 4 relates to those Board of Ed operational transfers due to their surplus, in which transferred $727,000 in for HVAC at West Hill School. We only spent $51,000 of it, but we got the bills coming in this month to pay those off. Plus the board asked for $252,000 of their surplus to be applied towards miscellaneous repairs for their school buildings. And last, we talked about how we were transferring in $200,000 from last year's CIP, and it sort of was allocated to other projects, from $40,000 to town building repairs, $10,000 for town vehicle and equipment, $20,000 for parks, equipment and vehicles, a $50,000 reserve for the community senior center, as well as $50,000 for the Stratsker Farm project, and then $30,000 for the solid waste program that we're starting this year. That's just plug numbers and so on. That money can be reallocated depending on how the needs of the unexpected expenses that might occur during the year in the town. And then the second page is just the what we have going forward starting on July 1st, which totals $2,197,000.
Open it up. Seeing none. All right.
Very thorough.
Well, I just want to make sure we remember we do have $87,000 for the police cameras, and our friends over at the Board of Ed have $190,000 for their roofs. And that was a good program because the state's supposed to be reimbursing us 46% of that money. So we should keep that going.
Does the grant for the cameras allow us, is it camera specific, or could we potentially use that for some of the other equipment that's been asked for, license plate readers, that type of thing?
I think
Body
it's
camera.
more geared towards
Body camera.
body
body and
cameras
car.
and storage. Storage is going to be
Yep,
another
yep.
headache.
All right, let's move forward to state aid for municipalities. Item number 5.
Okay, here I go. And so for state aid, we only had one state revenue come in for the month of August, as you see, and that was our first installment on the town aid road for $173,213. So a slow month on the state aid side, but we are really where we are supposed to be as far as that's concerned.
Right.
So-
I mean, nothing else is scheduled to come in the month of.
Correct.
July.
That's right. So right where we should be.
Okay.
Okay. So moving forward, if I may.
Yep.
So on the financials for revenue, for tax revenue, you can see we were at 55%, which is really good. We're back to, I guess we could call normal, so to speak. Obviously, in comparison to last year at this time, we were at the 46%, but we were not collecting at the same time frame. So if you look at the lower half of this report, I think I had mentioned in the previous month, we're benchmarking this on a 3-year average, excluding last year because we thought that would skew off what our 3-year average benchmark should be. So with that in mind, you can see that our collection at 55% in comparison to the 3-year averages where it should be at 55%. So tax collection is, as I said, back to normal. The prior year tax at 125,000 comparison to last year at 171 is really quite normal at this point in time. We'll probably see in the next year or so, we'll think about doing something more aggressive on collecting the prior years.
Any questions on the revenue side? I think it's pretty straightforward. So, all right, let's, I guess, look at the total revenue and then go into the expenses.
Okay. And on the expenditures, we're 2 months into the year, so we should be looking at about a 17% point. And if you look down the summary page, obviously, for example, town council, which is really just paying some contributions up front, would make that look a little bit off. Otherwise, we are pretty much where we should be. I think it would be nice to see some of these departments that in the previous year were not expending are starting to pick up in the expenditure mode. For example, the parks and area senior programs, we're at 23%, so we're putting some staff in place. And so I think we're again going back on a good trend and nothing unusual to point out. Education, that's only through the month of July, but of course the July, August would still be some low months. We'll start seeing those expenditures be higher in the next month.
Mona, what about police records, communications? Is it 25%?
A lot of that is some of their service contracts that they put in place.
Okay.
So they're doing contractual upfront. It's annual contracts they put in place, and then they'll see that balance itself out.
Okay, perfect.
How do we do in terms of, we had a number of recent storms. How do we do in terms of overtime or equipment related to those, the month where it rained the whole time and other work associated with that?
We did have a bit of a uptick on the overtime, but at this point, it's nothing that's standing out as an area of concern.
Kind of similar question to Alan, but on insurance. Is that just the timing of bills essentially, or?
Yes, you'll find it, at least, I'm not sure if you're looking on the employee benefits or the regular insurance, but we usually are paying those a month in advance. So in some of these items, you'll see 2 months. In the case of insurance, you'll see 3 months of group health. And on some of the, like the liability insurances are on a quarterly. So it's, again, it's a timing of how the payments come forth.
Thanks.
All right. I don't know if any other questions on the financial report. Excellent. Mona, I think we have a couple items under other.
Yes, that's right. So on other, I wanted to make sure that I had sent an email out earlier from the auditors, and just to be sure that everyone received that. Came out from our audit firm. It was the governance communication planning letter. So we wanted to be sure that that was received. It's a standard letter that comes from the auditors. And basically it's their communication with you being the finance committee that they're available for any outreach, any questions regarding the audit. It should discuss the timing of the audit, their responsibilities. So I believe that went out earlier, and just make note that if you didn't receive that, I can send that again. But I believe it should be all set.
Yeah, I got it.
We're good with that? Okay,
I
good.
got that as well. And the second item, Mona, I asked you about, if you could just give us an update on where we are with the American Rescue Plan Tranche
Yes.
1 funds, what we've used, what we received, what we used, and what we still have that we could allocate.
Okay. So yes, we received tranche 1 at the end of the last fiscal year. It was 2,976,523 to be exact. And as you know, when we adopted our budget last year, we had allocated 1,407,416 from that. That tranche is in a special revenue fund. So that amount that's been allocated for the general fund would be transferred from that. So with that being said, the remaining available would be 1,569,107. And that was for the American Rescue Plan Recovery Fund, which had an assortment of purposes, if we all recall.
Yeah, and I think that information is important because I'm sure, I haven't seen the agenda for this Monday's council meeting, but if it's not this Monday, it'll be within the next month or so. We'll start discussing how to utilize some of those funds.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I don't know if there's any questions on that for Mona.
Are we
If we
allowed
need-
to? Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, and if you needed anything like a review on the availability or the use of the funds, because if you recall back when we were working on this, it was the 150-page interim rule, which we kind of were weeding through. So, feel free to reach out if need be.
Did the final rule come out, or is it still an interim?
No, we're
stage?
still in interim. We're still in interim.
And are we allowed to benefit in any way from accrued interest, or is that count against us?
No, it's not accrued interest. It's just any grant fund that's going to be held separate. So we don't make interest on this money.
We're not going to get far on the 1/10 of 1%.
No, we don't.
Right. Well, it's eventually what, 6 million? Add
Yeah.
up.
Good thought, though. I like it.
I know.
Yeah, could buy us a sign, maybe. Who knows? People like signs.
All right, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Take care. Good job, Mona.
Thank you.